Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I'm your disheveled goblin host Daniel Green, and today we actually have, despite what the headlines read on the title of this video, quite the positive, happy episode of Fantasy News to get through, which I'm really excited for. We do have to start with one
fresh little unpleasantness.
And that's going to be kicking it off with the first major big story of the day. Yes, Neil Gaiman has officially had his publisher cancel his future works. Specifically, Dark Horse Comics, who has handled Neil Gaiman's graphic novels and was about to publish Anansi Boys by the author, has canceled any future endeavors with Neil Gaiman. Specifically posting on X, Dark Horse takes seriously the allegations against Neil Gaiman, and we are no longer publishing his works. But in conclusion, Neil Gaiman and good on Dark Horse Comics. But let's go ahead and transition on into the news of the week, and that is because we have some gorgeous cover reveals coming down the road, starting with one from Tor Nightfire, their horror imprint, because they have released the cover for another Chuck Tingle book called Lucky Day. That's right, the author of such hits as Bury Your Gaze, Camp Damascus, or Banged in the Butt by My Butt. Yep. That's a thing, has officially reached the status as an author where their name is appearing bigger than the title on their books. Good job, Chuck. I'm proud of you, and I cannot wait to get to Camp Damascus this year. I'm hoping to read it around Halloween. This book is set to be released 8/12/2025 with jacket design by La Boca. It's minimal, but it's kind of extra and a lot with its color choices, and I appreciate that. The design also, of course, is clearly like a playing card, and I like the way they've kind of embraced that to have this zany style that also makes me wonder how much gambling, poker, what have you is actually going to play into this story. The book is pitched as Poker Face meets Contagion, and this next novel by USA Today best-selling author and beloved internet icon Chuck Tingle. If you want to know more about this anonymous individual, I did a whole deep dive on the myths surrounding them you can check out. But that is going to take us to our next cover reveal of the day, which is going to be coming from the Broken Binding, and that is going to be for China Miéville's special edition of The City and the City. And I have an interesting relationship with Broken Binding. I have loved some of their covers. I have disliked some. They send me quite a few. I always give honest feedback. This, I'll need to see it in person. The sprayed edge, pretty banging, but Blue, I haven't read this book, so perhaps this is like relevant to the internal text. I cannot comment on that, but purely on how it strikes me for a shelf value, Blue. But speaking of Blue, this is not the final cover reveal we had this week from the Broken Binding, because they also have put out John Scalzi's When the Moon Hits Your Eye. And while this one also blue, it is a little bit less dominated by the color, and I just wish I enjoyed John Scalzi books more. No disrespect towards the man, that is not my author, I have learned. But in the final cover reveals we're going to be talking about today, I am actually blown away by these next ones. They easily take my favorite covers of the week, and it's even a batch from well-known authors who are all putting out original material in an unorthodox style that's actually retro and being brought in for these releases. If you don't mind, I'll get into a bit of a history lesson here. Ace originally published a style called Ace Doubles, where there would be two books in one on reverse sides of an individual binding between 1952 and 1972. This practice was apparently reintroduced in 1988 through 1991, and now it's being brought back for a few modern authors who are putting out some smaller sci-fi fantasy horror books for this kind of batch release from Saga. So first up, we have a horror duology being put out from Stephen Graham Jones called Killer on the Road and The Babysitter Lives by Stephen Graham Jones again. This one personally is my least favorite of the batch, purely because the artificial torn page look has just never worked for me on any book cover, but I do like this kind of almost 80s, call me crazy if you disagree with me, like horror poster style going on here. It specifically reminds me of the one with like the ice pick, I think, going near the eye.
Seriously, I have no idea what he's talking about.
And this is followed up by the one I'm actually most excited for, and that's going to be Apprehension, written by Mary Robinette Kowal, which has been paired with Red Star Hustle by Sam J. Miller. And me, cyberpunk vibes. punk cyber vibe me like. But then in the covers I enjoy the most, we have the final of this batch release coming, and that is going to be Day by Ellen Datlaw and Night by, again, Ellen Datlaw. And this, in terms of execution, seems to be like utilizing the double concept most effectively. I really enjoy this, but I want to know the Goblin's input on this style, the way it's releasing. I actually think of all the books I own, I only have one double binding like this, and that would be Brandon Sanderson's Snapshot paired with Dreamer. Yeah, you just flip the book and read it both ways. For me, because of like the retro style, the names involved, and the commitment to a really solid execution here, each of these is like, yeah, I think they're banging covers. Well done. In terms of which one's most likely to be on my TBR, that's going to be Apprehension by Mary Robinette Kowal. She is just never missed for me as an author. Each of the artists with which one they did on screen now with their handles, but if you want to know which each book is going to be about, The Killer on the Road is about 16-year-old Harper has decided to run away from home after she has another blowout argument with her mother. However, her two best friends, little sister and ex-boyfriend, all stop her from hitchhiking her way up Route 80 in Wyoming by joining her on an intervention disguised as a road trip. What they don't realize is that Harper has been marked by a very unique serial killer who's been trolling the highway for the past 3 years. The Babysitter is pitched as when high school senior Charlotte agrees to babysit the Wildbanks twins. She plans to put the 6-year-olds to bed early and spend a quiet night studying. The SATs are tomorrow morning, and checking the Native American/Alaskan Native box on all the forms won't help if she chokes on test day. But tomorrow is Halloween, and the twins are eager to show off their costumes. Red Star is pitched as Aaron, optimistic high-class escort, is on the run after his famous ambassador client is assassinated, with an ace security contractor trailing, but also running from her own boss, who happens to be both her mother and the head of one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. This science fiction thriller is a crisscross of heartbreak, addiction, struggles, and trauma, which comes together in a fast-paced space-hopping fight with the whole damn galaxy. Apprehension is pitched as Nahatanu, a family vacation arranged by Bonnie Jean, a grieving mother, her son-in-law Jax, and her 6-year-old grandson Tristan. Quickly becomes disastrous as Tristan is kidnapped by a terrorist operation that is hoping to affect the planet's upcoming elections between rival parties. And then Night and Day are anthologies with too many to get into here. Thank you for indulging me. I just like the retro vibes going on, and the doubles idea I'm digging. And then in two pieces of industry quickie news, Bloomsbury, the publisher of such mega phenomena as Harry Potter, briefly seemed to be stopping selling their books on Amazon due to an inability to reach an agreement, but behind closed doors, before the week was done, that was then avoided, and Bloomsbury, yes, will be continuing to sell their books through the retailer. But we have also seen that Waterstones has reported an incredible profit for 2024, now reporting a jump from $12 million in 2023 to $32.8 million in 2024, with annual sales increasing by a reported 17%, from $452.5 million to $528.4 million. And as we recently covered here in Fantasy News, physical bookstores seem to be doing well in general if we compare this and what happened recently with Barnes and Noble, though it's harder to know for individual smaller mom and pop type shops or just chains that aren't as gargantuan as these two. As from my personal experience, though, I do think this is just a general trend. I mean, yes, Amazon used to be like an online bookstore, but now it's just becoming a place where I'm seeing more and more people hesitate to even buy their books from unless they're doing ebooks. Totally anecdotally, the friends I have prefer to go get in their car, buy a book, maybe shop around for some extras and make some impulse purchases rather than go online, wait for shipping, possibly have it damaged in shipping or show up a couple days late. Trust me, I have had my own books be shipped through Amazon, which, yeah, I still don't like that has to happen because of deals with my publisher. And then people let me know, like, this came with a ding, doop, dop. That sucks. It's not great, and at least if you go to a bookstore, you can make sure that you get a pristine copy that you damage when you drop it walking outside, which I've also done.
Shame, shame, shame! Shame on you!
But speaking of major chains that have been selling books and not actually having a great time of it, Target has been trying to do a special edition release for Onyx Storm, the next book in Rebecca Yarros's Empyrean series. Fans, though, not thrilled because they kind of had like the PlayStation 5 drop issues where people trying to order online were kicked out. They even apparently mixed in like regular ones with the special editions in the stores. Of course, they didn't limit how many individuals could buy, so scalpers jumped in on the action trying to sell the books for hundreds, if not close to $1,000. But even inside the book, we have seen some fans upset because it's not all necessarily original art and instead tweaked existing art for the Empyrean series, or not, and then they just edited a bit to make it represent the Empyrean series and fold it in. Though it's not all bad. I mean, it still seems to be a lot of people are thrilled to be getting this book, and I'm happy for Rebecca Yarros fans in general that they've had a mega successful book launch in terms of numbers, at least for this series. My only like advice would be if it's not a dedicated bookseller, do not expect their sales of books en masse like this to go smoothly. There's a reason that a lot of the people I promote and talk about here in terms of special editions are dedicated to that part of the industry, because ins and outs, I'm actually considering working on a video where I bring in someone who like works in binding books to talk about the process here. It's incredibly complicated, and making sure the quality control and everything comes through on a scale like this, oh my God, is a whole other beast, because despite us being in the day and age we're in, binding a book is still something that is a process. In special editions, they're going to be asking you to spend extra money. For me, they really need to live up to that promise. No hate against Target, of course. I mean, they're pulling off something here, and again, majority of fans, I'm sure, are happy, and the internet's making the anger look more intense than it is. But for my money, if I'm going to go for a special edition, I'm going to wait for a company that is like dedicated to that practice, so that I don't end up in a situation where like I'm a bit disappointed by the art, or, you know, other various binding issues where glue is involved instead of proper stitching. One last piece of quickie news from me. If you have the ebooks for Breach of Peace or Rebels Creed, they should be updated now to have the re-edited text. I didn't change the story, just the line by line of it, because the updated version that was a part of the Kickstarter has been put in those marketplaces, and I think each one has gotten back to me and said it's gone through and processed, so that is now available for you in your e-reader of choice. And the Kickstarter by Wraithmarked of the combined Lawful Times edition, I believe, is like next up on their docket, so those should be getting sent out before too long. But now, into some George Martin news. And that is because the man, the myth, the favorite character, Butcher, has apparently helped co-author a physics paper. A peer-reviewed physics paper was published in the American Journal of Physics that derives a formula to describe the dynamics of a fictional virus that was a part of the series Wildcards, a shared universe that Martin has edited for, that was specifically spawned from the Superworld RPG that Martin himself has been running since the 80s. And I actually kind of really like the pitch of what this series is, though to be perfectly honest, I had not heard about it before checking this out, but apparently Wildcards follows an alternate history of the United States, where in the aftermath of World War II, an alien virus designed to rewrite DNA was released over New York City. And the reason it's called Wildcard is it affects everybody differently. And while it kills most, those that survive end up with powers. And I want to use this as an excuse to just ask the Goblin Horde here, are there any specific alternate history books you'd like for me to check out and review here on the channel? It is a genre that I have been very interested in and dabbled into before, but not really committed myself to. And now that I'm kind of putting Lit RPG a little bit behind me, though I will absolutely still be reading some, it might be a subgenre that I put my toes into next. This, though, is going to take us to our Wheel of Time update, because we had some shots released from Season 3. Trailer reaction right there if you do want to see it. And a few of these shots were just stills from the trailer as well, though many of them were not. We have a shot of Moraine in a gorgeous dress, 3 of our favorite ladies from the series on beautiful horses, Matt, it seems, back in Tar Valon, Elaine and Avienda beginning that friendship, which, say what you will about Elaine's arc in the series, I'm not nearly as negative on it as some people. Their bond, goals. Lanfear looking killer as ever. Rand and Perrin hanging out with Matt, which I would love to get just more scenes in this season of these three together showing why they are best friends. It's an angle from the series I just feel like we have not gotten as much in the show. Elida with Morghese and what I assume is Andor. Or perhaps they've come to Tar Valon because of Elaine and all of that. That would actually make sense as well. A Amerlin seeming in a fight. Rand on a mountain with Samael. And Rand and Lan training. Good God, give us that scene. Give it. Give it, please. Thank you. But if we're talking about Prime series, let's go ahead and just naturally slide on over from Wheel of Time to Rings of Power, because Rings of Power has officially been confirmed for a Season 3 over at Prime. And the timing of this is not uncomfortable at all, because we've just found out that viewership from Season 1 to Season 2 in terms of overall minutes watched dropped 60%. That's fine. I'm sure that's fine. You know, tons of shows have dropped 60% in watch time and recovered for a Season 3, I'm sure. I'm absolutely... Oh, goof. That is a kick to the Palantir. And I still remember the initial contract of when they apparently spent $1 billion in this show, where it guaranteed, I believe, 5 seasons. So what this means for the future budgeting of Rings of Power, its delivery, who knows? Again, I preach that shows can recover. They can get better in later seasons. Next Generation was originally pretty awful, but after Season 2, it got great. 60% dip, though. That... Booyah! But in terms of a studio that is not taking a blunt force impact to the gonads, we have had Fortiche have 2 pieces of interesting news drop this week. Not only are they apparently looking into creating their own original movie, specifically the synopsis of this story has been pitched as, in a world inspired by ancient Greece, 17-year-old Penelope attends an elite high school with her other famous heirs of the Athenian Empire, Achilles, Helen, Circe, Agamemnon, and of course, Odysseus. These teen royals are competitive at everything they do, including how they have fun before they return to rule their kingdoms. But Penelope isn't like the rest of them.
I'm not like the other girls.
She's a dutiful daughter on a secret mission given to her by her father, the king of Sparta, a mission to free her people from Athens' imperialist grasp. For Penelope, high school isn't a party, it's war. What starts as a coming-of-age high school dramedy shifts into an epic adventure as these teens from opposite worlds must learn to trust each other in order to save their friends from an insidious threat. But on top of that, they are apparently interested in requiring an adaptation for Vagabond, the legendary manga that I still not gotten through, darn it. And that, I mean, good lord, did that open a whole basket of potential here that I am thrilled by. The original IP news that we discussed for a movie apparently is going to be bringing over the initial head writer from the 2 seasons of Arcane. Fan-freaking-tastic. But in terms of Fortiche possibly continuing forward and breaking away from video game adaptations and doing something along the lines of manga, oh buddy, Vagabond, a killer start, I imagine, for fans of that. But if there was like one studio that I believe could actually adapt many manga that I've come across that I felt like were unadaptable, Berserk, for example, they would be like one name where I'd be like, oh,
Don't give me hope.
But let's go ahead and move on to some wider movie news as well. Because as Denis Villeneuve is beginning to wind down his time in the Duneverse, he seems to be wanting to continue his legacy of adapting science fiction. Because the director has expressed interest in adapting Rendezvous with Rama, a sci-fi masterpiece from the author Arthur C. Clarke. And while this is just him expressing interest in something, with how much weight Denis Villeneuve has behind him now in Hollywood, specifically in the nerdy sci-fi space, I'd say there's a slim to decent chance of him getting this done. Specifically saying about the series, like 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's about astronauts coming into contact with another civilization. It's an exploration where we engage with technology that could realistically exist in the future. Unlike Dune, which leans more forward fantasy, for the first time, I'd be able to work on hard science fiction. I'd love to do that at least once in my life. The only thing I disagree with there is I would call Blade Runner 2049 hard science fiction, but okay. And I do want to use this as an excuse to talk about the fact that somehow He was not nominated for Best Director for Dune Part 2, and Denis Villeneuve has never gotten an Oscar for Best Director, and that is what? Even outside of like the fantasy science fiction conversation and looking at movies like Sicario, or I would even argue Enemy, or, oh, what's the Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal one? Prisoners. All of those are directed so freaking magnificently. I don't even know if this is like genre snobbery, because the guy should have been winning Oscars, in my opinion, allegedly, for like most of this. He is, at least in my mind, in like top 3 working directors period today. Wait, he's only been nominated for Best Director once, and it was Arrival? Dude. Oh yeah, I was Googling more about people upset about Denis Villeneuve not getting nominated for Best Director for Dune 2, and a lot of people coming out about Josh Brolin, Chris Miller. There are people who want to talk about this. Okay, he's gotten Best Picture nominations, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best International Film Feature, but he's only gotten Best Director once, and like, that's just a nomination. What? I'm actively getting more annoyed as we're sitting here going over this. All right, but speaking about science fiction, let's go ahead and talk about the fact that we have had another Alien movie trailer drop, and this is going to be for Alien Earth. The teaser, as you're seeing on screen now, is essentially just the POV of an alien running through a spaceship as it crashes to Earth. As simple a premise as can be to deliver I'd be more hyped for this if Alien versus Predator didn't exist. Something about both of those movies being what they were pollute the water of this a smidge, because it's like, oh, I've seen aliens on Earth before, not greatly done. I hope this is better. The poster, though, of like the alien head turning into Earth, dope. But in some One Piece news, it has been confirmed that season 2 of the Straw Hats live-action adventure will be dropping in 2025. Though with no specific date attached with that, I would assume Q4 rather safely. But that's not the end of the Straw Hat news, because maybe in my favorite news of the week, I'll stand by that. Lego has announced that they will be releasing some One Piece sets. If you have ever wanted to build the Going Merry, that's gotta be one, right? In the Lego medium, that will likely be coming sooner rather than later. Actually, now that I think about it, it probably will drop around the time season 2 drops. Would they do that? Would they hold off? I don't see a release date here. So would they do, okay, let's wait to release these kits for season 2? Or would that be, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And then we have news that I am going to take full credit for. That's right, because recently here on the channel, I reviewed what I consider to be a modern animated science fiction masterpiece in the show of Pantheon. But the show, frustratingly, could not be watched legally inside the United States or most of the world, because season 2 was exclusively dropped on Prime New Zealand and Australia for some reason. But now we will be getting season 2 for the first time over on Netflix. And if you have not watched season 1 and season 2, I just do Ken Liu. I reviewed his Dandelion Dynasty, which I have so much respect for, and I reviewed Pantheon. He has become one of my favorite sci-fi fantasy minds as of recent, because the guy, he thunk good, and he put that thunkin' good to paper and screen good. And then in news that I have no idea how to feel about, Robert Eggers is apparently going to be doing a sequel to Labyrinth, the David Bowie crotch-bulge starring classic from the 80s. Yes, we'll apparently be getting a follow-up of some sort, not clarified if it's like a direct sequel or a reboot from the modern horror master coming off his success of Nosferatu. He will be doing his signature combo of writing and directing, and the only reason I'm not like balls to the wall excited for this, don't get me wrong, I have never not liked a Robert Eggers project, flat out. But I really like Labyrinth. Kayla and I actually did a co-review of it on Patreon not too long ago. But I enjoy it for being like a borderline cartoon 80s cocaine-fueled mess that it kind of feels like. I actually also recently with my neighbor rewatched Witch, and the tonal difference between a Robert Eggers project and Labyrinth maybe couldn't be larger. Oh wow, he didn't get Best Director for Nosferatu either. I disagree with that. An Academy, what's going on? Brian Henson will be executive producing, and he is co-writing the script with Jean, the collaborator he worked with on Viking and The Northman. I'm not saying I'm not excited about this. I am just saying my initial gut reaction to this is, what? But now, before we end the news, a book written by one of you in the Goblin Horde.
And today's Indie Pub promo is 11th Cycle, Mistland, Book 1. By Kian N. Ardalan, pitched by Grimdark Magazine as 11th Cycle checks all the boxes of a grimdark masterpiece. It is a stunning achievement, establishing Kian N. Ardalan as one of the most exciting new voices in speculative fiction. It had been 1,000 years since the last seed abandoned their duty. The mists are closing in. Finally, the morning bell tolls. A new seed is born, but is it too late? The rot eats away at mortals, the witnesses pray so that they may not turn into one of the forgotten, and the constricting mists infect the lands with fear. But there is more to this tale than just the elders and their seeds. 4 mortals will have a part to play in Minethria's fate. A farmer girl with only love in her eyes, a warrior born to the life of a refugee, a highborn stuck between the realm of gods and men, and a woman running into the front lines and away from home. Will the cycle finally be completed, or will the mist swallow all? And with more than 300 reviews on Amazon and with a 4.2 rating, you can read people's impressions such as one of my best reads of the past year, awesome start to a new epic fantasy series, and my new favorite book. Definitely be sure to check it out in the links down below.
But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace. And I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons. And as you can see, they are all now on screen from the second and first highest tiers. These latest high tier patrons are going to be Reptiverse and Austin Clark. Thank you both so much, and I look forward to bringing you guys more content in February.